Okay, we are live, and I am so excited today, Intentional Optimist, to invite Lisette Zounon into the studio here. She's a member of our group, and if you listen to the podcast, you heard her this week. If you have not downloaded that particular episode, it's about confidence. You definitely need it. And Lisette, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Sorry for my voice quality, but I'm here.
Yeah, if anybody's been paying attention to you on Facebook or anyplace else, we know that you've been sick. And I was personally impressed that you went out and ran, even though you have some kind of upper respiratory thing going on. So we will do our best to keep this within the time allotted. And so here's the nice thing. You are a really good teacher and you're a consultant. For those who may not have listened to the podcast yet, could you give them just a really quick summary of what you do?
Yes, and I have to say, you have to listen to the podcast. I listened to the podcast and I was amazed. So I was like, who is that person? I want to meet her. So I really encourage you to listen to the podcast. I shared with a couple of my friends last night. But I'm Lisette Zounon, and the way I like to describe myself is a multi-talented, multi-passionate woman that like to empower, educate, and elevate other women into building their confidence, into building their health and also leadership skills. So everything that I do is really around that. I am a software technology leader by trade. So that's what I do. That's what I consult company in the software quality testing. I don't want to get too geeky here. And but I also work with a lot of women in coaching them in their confidence. I talk a lot at different conference on various topics, and the topic that I'm going to be sharing today is one of my preferred topic that I like to share with leaders, because I believe for leaders, listening is a main ingredient for your success. So I'm so excited to be here today.
Thank you. I'm so excited you are here to share this, and you are definitely a leader. And when you listen to the podcast, you'll get a whole other side of Lisette in the way she does global leadership. So we're not even going to share that unless she wants to. So that's just a teaser for you to go out there and take a listen. I will say this, having been interviewed on other people's podcasts, there are times we don't realize, do we, Lisette, what
Yes.
story really is, right? And so it is an amazing story. And I mean, even when my friend and podcast producer was going through it, she goes, "Oh my gosh, I need to know this lady." So it is a very inspiring story. Okay, so you're going to talk to us today about listening. So I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing the screen here, and I'm going to let you kind of introduce it a little bit, and then I'm just going to turn it all over to you. Are you ready?
Yes, let's go.
All right, go.
Welcome everybody, and like I mentioned, my name is Lisette Zounon, and I wear many hats, and one of the hats that I really love wearing is being a mother, is also being a software quality leader. And for me, leadership is a cornerstone of really empowering other, and listening is a key ingredient to be a leader. And this webinar, if you want to call it, I like to call it webinar, is really come from my capstone in Toastmaster. So I've been in Toastmaster for about 17 years. And when I tell people that I've been in Toastmaster, they're like, "Oh, you like to talk, you're a talker." But one of the things that I learned the most from Toastmaster is really listening, And when you do Toastmaster, when you get your DTM, which is one of my title here, listening was a training that I did. This is a half day, like 4-hour training that I do on listening. So this 4-hour training has been condensed in this 1-hour presentation, maybe even 40-minute presentation. So we're going to go through this really, really quick, but I really want to tell you that listening is something that you have to really pay attention to. So I really invite you to follow along. let's
Well,
get
and I'm
started.
going to pop in really quick here. I'm going to go over to the Facebook page because if there are comments and you want to write comments and you have questions, I know Lisette is in the group. So if for some reason we don't get to your questions today or right during the live, she can answer questions if you tag her in those at the end of this event. So I'm going to go ahead and share fully and take it away, girl.
All right. So again, welcome. Today we're going to learn how to listen effectively. We're going to dive into the 9 technique of a better listener and how to be a successful leader, applying some of the listening technique to your advantage. We're also going to talk about how you can apply listening habit to any situation. We have talked a lot about me, so I'm going to skip this slide. I just encourage you to listen to the podcast. As Andrea mentioned, you will learn a lot about me, what I do in general. And as Andrea mentioned as well, pop in your question and I'll come back and answer them as well. So let's get started. How to be a better listener. When we talk about listening, it seems as an easy thing, but most of us have challenged being a good listener or being even an active listener. We have to be intentional listeners. So listening is usually a secret weapon for any leader, change agent, or a coach. And Andrea, I'm not looking at the screen where we are on StreamYard. So if you have any question, just pop in, okay? Basic human need. So basically, listening is really a basic human need. Listening is often the only thing that is needed to help somebody. And throughout this presentation, I'm going to throw in a lot of quotes. I love, 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 love quotes. So when I was preparing for this presentation, I made sure that I found all the quotes that existed on Google or wherever on listening. So I love this quote about the first duty of love is to listen by Paul Teaches. I'm not going to try to say his name. So how to listen effectively. I also love this quote by Stephen Covey. He's one of my favorite authors. Most people do not listen with the intent to understand, but most people listen with the intent to reply. Let's just take that in. And I'm sure you all feel guilty about this. Have you ever been in a conversation where somebody's talking to you and the first thing you want to do is just get into it? Like, oh, okay, I have something to say. Don't. Okay? That is not a trait of an effective listener. Learn and practice listening. Definitely listening is something you have to practice. What you're going to learn today is going to definitely change your life. I'm not saying that, lightly. If you apply the technique you learned today, you're going to be a stronger leader. Good listening skill help us understand the other people's point of view. That's really the goal here. Listening is a learned skill. So that's why you're here. That's why we're here. That's what we're going to talk about. And when you think about it, listening is to pay attention to the sound we hear with thoughtful attention. So it's a transaction. I'm an engineer, so I always see everything as 1 and 0. It's really a signal from the sender to the receiver. That's as simple as you can think about it. It's a signal from the sender to the receiver. Hearing versus listening. Hearing is to listening what is seen to reading. Hearing to perceive or apprehend by hear. We can improve with training. So all of this is something you can improve with training.
That's, you know what, Lisette, that's really nice to know though, right? I mean, a lot of times I say, well, I'm not a good listener. Well, that's okay. It's a skill you can learn.
Exactly. Yeah. And we're not going to do activity here today, but like I told you guys, in this actual 4 hours training that I do, it is full of activity. That's why actually it takes 4 hours. So I'm going to skip this. But feedback. So this activity was about, just tell us, what particular situation where listening is very important. So these are kind of like the place where we feel like listening is important. When information are directed and direction are given, when somebody is communicating a complaint, you better listen.
Yep.
Personal or significant, that's the moment where you really want to listen. Personal or significant information is being exchanged in a relationship. Yes. When people are making plan to do something together, right? How many times have you make vacation plan with your friend and you say you want in a hotel with breakfast in the morning and you got there and you didn't get it? That's my husband number one complaint. When people enter in contract and agreement, that is so important. I'm gonna sign a contract this afternoon, and I'm gonna be using my ear and listening a lot. When people try to solve problem through discussion, that's where we really need to put our listening on. When people has a need for emotional support, that is super important to listening as well. And I'm sure you have your own list. Excuse me. Important of listening. Okay, what happened is these are the things that happen when you don't listen. You waste time, waste money and effort. Productivity and business profit is affected. There's lawsuit that happen, just like I was talking about earlier. If contract and agreement signed and you don't listen, there's going to be lawsuit that happen later. Bad listening is the result of a lot of sales and loss of customer. Listening is actually a great concern to many executives. Many executives always share to their executive coach that the team are not listening to them. Listening to people when they're angry, because that is when the real truth come out. I'm sure we all know that.
Yeah, but none of us want to do that.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, none of us want to listen when somebody else is angry. We just want to tell them to stop being angry. Right?
Please don't make me laugh.
I'm sorry. I should stop talking.
It's gonna ruin the presentation if I start laughing. But that's so true. Right. Yeah. So the rest of the presentation is where we're gonna dive into the 9 techniques to be a better listener. Actually, there's 9 techniques, and this is super fun. So the number 1 is like to listen. You have to come with the intention to be a good listener. Act like a good listener. There's 5 things you need to do to be a good listener. Here they are. Focus your eyes on the person who is talking. Be attentive if you happen to listen. Lean forward occasionally, like Andrea is doing right now. Respond with appropriate facial expression to show you are enjoying listening to what the other person has to say. Encourage your speaker by asking supportive questions. React to what the speaker is saying. This is vital. You can provide recognition by giving verbal comments such as I understand, I agree, I don't know, I'm glad, is that right? Okay. In my culture, African culture, you will learn about me in the podcast. One of the things that I thought was a bad thing, but after I took this, I've been training people on listening. I own it. We like to really have those, okay. Okay. And I used to do that even in a professional setting. I used to do that, and I used to like hold myself back, like, okay, Lisette, that's unprofessional, you know. But I later, when I started training people on listening, I was like, no, this is actually, you know, my way of saying I'm here, you know. Right. I agree, I'm taking it in, I'm enjoying it, I'm taking notes, you know. If I was not presenting, I'll be taking notes. That's just another way of you showing that, you know, you really listening. These are all legit way. Let me not lose track of my presentation. Okay, next. All right, learn to ignore distraction. That's number 2. Okay. I don't know what happened. Okay, in your distraction, this is important. Listen to a person when they look at you, not just when they're talking to you. Okay, visually and mentally focus on the speaker and what he or she is saying. Listen with your eyes as well as with your ear. Tell yourself, I'll listen to this speaker only. Distraction is very difficult these days. You know, when you're listening, you know, how many times do you have your daughter or your kids come in the room and tell you, Mommy, look at me, I'm talking to you, you know, while they're not even looking at you either. They're on their phone. So
well, and I've had people walk up and literally look over my shoulder. And granted, I'm short, but literally look over my shoulder to the next person, which made me feel, while they're shaking my hand, which made me feel very not listened to at all. Right.
I need my personal space. That's another conversation. Yeah. So Number three, summarize what the speaker is saying. That's also a good way to show that you're listening. And these are 6 methods to summarize what you heard. Listen for concept and main idea. When somebody's talking, you have to listen for the main concept and the idea. Mentally outline or take note, as I was mentioning. Taking note is also a good way for you to help summarize. Compare and contrast and say, okay, they say this and they say this, and think ahead of the speaker, even like, where is she going with this? Do a mental play game with yourself. That also help you pay attention. Number the point you listen. Like, okay, number 1, number 2, number 3. This is also a good way for you to keep track of what you're hearing and create an acronym. Like, oh, she said listen. Okay, so maybe there's an acronym happening here. Let me pay more attention.
This is a lot. I could create an acronym while I'm listening.
Yes.
How do you do that and not completely lose track? Now, I'm number 4. I'm good at. I'm going ahead, right? And it kind of bothers my husband because he's a Mr. Detail guy. And so he will like give the details and I will be like, okay, and you're going to land. Now, so I guess the key is to listen, but don't necessarily tell them where they're going to land. Let them get there.
Right. Let them figure it out on their own. Guess. Yeah. All right, now this is my favorite one. Learn to tame your emotion. Okay. Because we always have emotion about what we hear. We don't always agree with what we hear, right? Can you name some other subject, people, or event that create a negative feeling for you? How do you control your behavior? We can try to be logical and intelligent. We need appropriate degree of emotion when we hear it. So a couple of examples that I have here that are controversial. Adolf Hitler was an effective leader and the world's greatest, most benevolent and understanding politician. When I say that, that can bring a lot of emotion, right? Yeah, I wanted to look at the facial expression. Exactly. But you have to trust your listener, your speaker, and wait to see where they're going with this, instead of just throwing your personal emotion. But these can, drive your
tight.
Exactly. We all know most Americans need to lose weight, so we can quit hearing about heart disease, diabetes, and cancer. A little bit harsh, there's more to it, but this is something you can hear a speaker say, and you just have to hold on your emotion, tame your emotion for now. All right, the next one is also a good one. Eliminate hasty judgment, right? Because when you heard about the Hitler, you probably was like, what is she thinking about? Like, you want to really go there with me, but you need to calm down your judgment as well, because you don't know where the speaker is going. You don't be ahead of them. Just follow the speaker here. Listen. Eliminate hasty judgment. So, for instance, this speaker that you're listening to has a French accent, right? So you don't need to judge me on my French accent. That might be a beautiful thing that I'm bringing to the table. We make judgment on people's title all the time. When somebody said they're janitor, their flight attendant, the air traffic controller, their stripper, or their policeman, we just by hearing the title, we make judgment already. That's not good. What is the alternative to making hasty judgment? Empathy. You need to really have empathy. Empathy is seeing with the eyes of another, listening with the ears of another, and feeling with the heart of another person. So it's really important to bring empathy to your listening as well.
Well, I like that. I like that definition of empathy. And it's all about,
I love it.
I mean, we were talking just this last weekend about putting somebody else's glasses on and seeing things through their own lens. And when you do that, it just makes a difference, doesn't it?
Yes, totally. Yes. So how do we listen with empathy? You have to listen to understand, not to say something back in return. That's the part that you need to really hold yourself. So you have to try, like you were saying, Andrea, you have to try to place yourself in the speaker's shoes. Listen to the speaker point of view. Hear the speaker out. Be alert to everything that is being said. Avoid selective listening at all costs. What happened to us human beings is we actually just choose what we want to hear.
Yep.
Have you ever been in an argument with your partner, your husband, anybody?
My son.
And you just choose what you want to hear instead of hearing the whole picture. So don't do that. Avoid that at all costs.
Yeah, that's easy. And we like to accuse other people of doing it, but a lot of times
we do it. Yeah, so as part of eliminate judgment is there's this connotation versus denotation. When you're listening to somebody, there's a difference between a connotation and denotation of the word the speaker is using. So concentrate to get the connotation, which is what the word mean. Don't get stuck on the denotation of the word, which is specifically the dictionary meaning of the word. Because
Mm.
word don't contain meaning, people supply meaning to it.
You know, that is so important. The context of a word makes so much difference. And we can do this with small words. And, you know, my son's a 12 and a half year old, and he gets used in a lot of my examples, but he's learning new nuanced concepts. The older he gets, he's learning certain things. And, you know, when one word is in one sentence, it means one thing. And when it's in a different sentence, it means something totally different.
Right.
And, you know, connotation and denotation are not words that we use on a regular basis, but I think we know the difference. It's just a matter of what's the exact dictionary and then how is
What
it
does that
being
mean?
used? Yeah.
Right. And all that need to happen while you're listening to somebody.
Our brains have to go.
Stay focused. Next is we have to differentiate fact versus opinion. And if you have been alive in the past, I would say 5 to 7 years, you really know that fact and opinion has become something that are really untangled these days. So let's talk about it. What is the definition? A fact is a condition or event that can be verified. Okay. A opinion cannot be verified since it's an expression of your own judgment. So, example, everyday life are dominated by computer. That's a fact. We're all using a computer right now. I bet you're using a computer to listen to us or watch us. I'm standing in front of my computer speaking to you guys right now. So that's my opinion because you don't know. I might be on a beach somewhere on a green screen. So you don't know. So
I wish I was on a beach somewhere. You know, I found one thing that actually, I don't know, can you see what that
neutral
says?
fact. Yes, neutral
Okay.
fact.
So I literally have this on my computer because this is my own little trigger to keep me from having hasty judgments and emotional reactions, is to remind myself that everything that comes in to me is a neutral fact. And then I have to say, all right, what is the neutral fact? Right. And that
Mm,
helps me to differentiate them so that my emotions and my judgments stay in the background. And then I can actually do something with that information when it comes in. Because as it comes in, it's just
right.
stuff, right? I
Yeah,
mean, and somebody else saying it is just stuff. So this is really good.
that's a good practice. Cool. Thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Number 6, never interrupt. Okay. Why do we interrupt the speaker? When we argue mentally with the speaker, when we continue to ponder something while another point is being made, when we mentally question at length a statistic which is presented, when we disagree as a point is being made, when we don't remain open to reason and argument, that's when we interrupt. Don't do it. It's not worth, it's not cool, it's not great. So don't interrupt the speaker ever. Inspire openness. That's number 7. Really, I love this quote by the Dalai Lama. When you talk, you are only repeating what you already know. But if you listen, you might learn something new. Okay? So be open to hear from the speaker. Look at the speaker. Nod in agreement. Smile when you hear something you like. Communicate your reception. Look friendly. React positively. Act like a good listener.
That's good.
And
I like that one.
yeah, and this is one of my favorite one as well. Your body speak. When you listen, your body speak. Body language is important to the speaker as it is to the listener. Be alert to your own body can help you be a better listener. So keep your eyes, looking, your ear listening, your hand down, your mouth need to stay quiet, your feet are down. This is a cartoonish, but it really shows how you should be listening, from the kindergarten level to the senior citizen. That's how listening should be. Really. So let's see, I think we're coming to the end. I'm making some mistakes. Okay, to acknowledge, number 8, to acknowledge the need to listening. Okay, so that's just acknowledge that you need to listen to this person, because we know distraction is going to happen. Emotional is going to be trigger a little bit. You're going to be triggered emotionally. You want to be judging the speaker. Just acknowledge yourself that, okay, I want to listen to this lady that I never met, but she sounds like she's talking about something interesting. Let me focus and listen. Generate conclusion. That's really number 9. That's where you really want to generate your conclusion. And as listener, it increased the listening with factor of condensed presentation. So depending on how the delivery of the speaker is, you might condense what you just heard in your head. And as a human being, we usually, how many words do you think we hear per minute? About 400 word per minute on average we use. Okay, so when you generate conclusion, it's different than making hasty judgment. It's just concluding, or okay, this is what I just heard, this is my conclusion. So conclusion are actually reasonable, thoughtful interpretation of what you just heard. That's it. Those are the 9 technique. And when you think about it, this is actually an acronym for listening. So like to listen in your distraction, summarize what you summarize it, time your emotion, eliminate hasty judgment, never interrupt, inspire openness, need to listen, acknowledge the need to listen, and generate conclusion. So that's what really make you a good listener. Okay?
Yeah. That's really good. Go ahead.
Yes. Now we're going to talk about a little bit how active listening is a crucial leadership skill. Okay, one of the cool things that I saw and realized was listen and silent are spelled with the same letter. Did you know that?
I didn't. I have a friend who's like, well, of course they are, I'm sure. But I like that.
Yeah, so there's a correlation, right? So as a leader, what you want to do is first, I just like to use this to say, as a leader, what you want to do first is to listen, take everything that you heard in, use your silence to think about it before you consult, advise, or direct or delegate, whatever you do. So active listening involves organizing, interpreting what you just heard. Active listening involves communicating a willingness to listen and being non-threatening, especially for a leader, understanding other point of view and offering feedback. Active listening must be based on genuine respect for the opinion of others. It also reduces certain kind of communication breakdown. It stimulates communication. It promotes positive feeling of self-worth. Self-worth. It reduce hostility. This is really important, and help people better understand one another. So these are all great character or things that you can do as a leader for your team to really know that you're there for them. Listening and leadership. So, as a strategy to improve your listening skill, active listening can help you encourage stronger communication between you and your team member. Knowing that the leader care about and appreciate them make each team member feel valued as an individual and an important factor in driving employee engagement. 99% when people do employee engagement or survey, one of the highest thing that come on the list is always that they feel like the company is not listening to their need,
Yeah.
And if you don't listen to your employee, that means you're not going to listen to your customer. It's the same thing. I've not got into the habit of listening to anybody. So that's also something to pay attention to. Your skill as an effective listener will not only make you a better speaker, increase your understanding, it will play a major role in helping you in succeeding in whatever you're doing as a leader. Yeah. Okay. We are at the end. So what we talked about today was how to listen effectively, in-depth look of the 9 technique, and how active listening make you a better leader. A couple of the resources that I use, as I mentioned, this is really a great deal coming from my Toastmaster education. I've been in Toastmaster for 17 years, but this presentation happened almost like 7 years ago. And I've been doing a lot more research on how listening has been impacting leadership. So there's a great article on Ford magazine that I got this a lot of research from.
Okay.
And this is me. Thank you. If you want to follow me, I'm in the group here. I love to interact with you all, answer your question. I'm also on Instagram, Z Square for Africa, and everywhere at Z Square, LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever. I hope
Excellent.
this was helpful.
It was very helpful. And, for me, some of this was because I've done a lot of leadership study as well. I'm going to leave this screen up just for a little while. But we can easily link, like if you want to pop into the comments at the event afterwards, you can put some of that stuff in there, and anything that, even if you want to put how people can work with you. Do you do individual coaching, or do you just mentor?
I do individual coaching. Actually, I have a group coaching program right now. So yeah, the group, as part of the group coaching, if people want more, I coach them individually. Yes.
Okay. So maybe you can drop that in there too, like a link to that, or how they can contact you about that. You can drop that into the comments. But some of my takeaways, the the whole 9 different pieces of active listening, that's a lot of stuff.
Yes.
How long did it take you to feel like you had kind of incorporated all of that? Because, for somebody getting that like on the front end, it feels heavy, right?
Yeah, I remember because I've been with my business partner for we know each other. She's my cousin, so we know each other pretty much all my life, But when I first heard about this, I didn't tell about anybody, I just learned it and then I start applying it, just applying it on by myself. I like we talk about it in the podcast where I like to take notes. So obviously I had the
Right.
9 laid down, and I choose out of the 9. I did the same thing because I did this the same time I did the Stephen Covey 7 Habits of Highly Successful Leader, right? So whatever we did in the Stephen Covey, I took that training maybe a month before I stumbled on this 9 technique when I learned in my Toastmaster. So I did the same thing that they taught us in the Covey, like pick the one that you're already good at, So out of the 9, I picked the one that I felt like this was natural to me, that I think I'm already doing. And then I was like, okay, I'm already good at this. Let me continue. And then the one that I was like, oh, I didn't know I had to do this, So I picked those as well. I circled those, in the red highlighter. And then I started paying attention. And then I started applying to people. And my cousin, my business partner, maybe after 2 months, was like, you kind of really emotional, what's wrong with you? And I was like, what do you mean? Because I'm a 0-1 person. But she was like, I was like, oh, why? She's like, because when I'm talking to you, you don't react, you usually just quiet. She felt like I was giving her space to say everything. It's like, because I knew mine was the listen to reply. That one was like, because we also learned that as part of the Kavi, because that's one of the Kavi. So when I got that, and also part of that, I was in a leadership position in the company when we did the 7 Habit, and they did a 360. I'm sure you know what is a 360 leadership. What is it? Feedback, right?
Yep.
So one of the things that showed up in my 360 was the fact that maybe I don't listen or something wrong. Just I take off too much of the space or something, and part of what came out for me was that one, what I realized for me was maybe I should just let people, like, okay, I like to problem solve for people way too much, I just like to way too much.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't problem solve, So, and then I learned something from also Dr. Phil, one day just watching Dr. Phil on TV. And that is my motto. He said, when people come and tell you their problem, ask them, what do they need from you?
Right.
So what does, it's simple. For me, I like simple technique, simple, right? What does that mean? That just mean I'm going to listen to you, first of all, tell me the whole situation. I'm going to take it in. And instead of being the old Lisette of maybe 15 years ago and say, oh, this is what you should do. You should do this. I'm just going to say, what do you want me to do? How can I help you?
Yeah. And I love that phrase. And I started hearing that a lot on New Amsterdam, the show New Amsterdam. It's like, how can I help? And I found that in my job and in my coaching, and I don't always do it in my close personal relationships. So that's where I really need some work, is instead of, I mean, I'll say things like, what do you need from me? But that doesn't come across as sounding helpful. Comes across as sounding like, what do you need from me? It's like, what do you
What
want?
else can I do for you?
But when you say, how can I help you? Then it completely changes the dynamic of the conversation. And, sometimes people will come to complain and they just really need to be heard. So how can I help? Literally turns it around and they say, well, I really just needed you to listen. Okay. Right. And I think it's important to point out too that I think both of us, because you focus on confidence and helping people build their confidence and empowering women. I focus on empowering women, and I kind of like working with women who have been told they're too much and are trying to get over the hurdles. Yeah, who are trying to get over those emotional hurdles of, it's not. My first 360 was, I did not know I was signing up for a 360. It was, I accidentally got a 360. It was, and I don't like rejection. So it was very hard for me.
The first one is always hard. It's always.
Yeah, even if you choose it, I'm sure it's hard. And the more you get that feedback loop going, the more you can do that. But to be able to say to women who like to problem solve and who have been called bossy, look, you can still be yourself and you can still listen well and you can still offer advice, but listening means that it opens the door for people to really know you better and for you to really know them better. And I think that was an important point for you to make.
Yeah, and another thing about listening for us that are like problem solver is you actually can hear what they came for. What is the problem? Instead of you saying in your head, because you heard the first sentence and you already jump into it, you can just listen to the whole problem. And if you want to problem solve while you're summarizing as part of the 9 technique, you can already be summarizing and say, okay, this is what it is. This is what it is. That's what I do in my consulting. Like when I'm consulting with people, I just get, especially with this Zoom situation that we do now, I just listen, and I'm just taking it in. When I hear something that sounds like a trigger for me to tell them maybe you should do this, I write it down. And then the next thing that I do before I start giving any consulting is question, from what I hear now, I want to question a little bit so that I can expand upon what I heard. And by the time you do that, if it's a 1-hour consulting, that's already 45 minutes because they give you plenty of what they need.
Right.
And the next 15 minutes is just what action can you take, or how can I help you take an action, to solve for this. And the person also will come with the action because you're like, okay, when I was in your situation, these are the 3 or 4 things that I did, What do you think from your perspective will make sense for you? Because you are not me, and I was not you. So which one of those 5 might make sense for you to do? And how soon can you do it, And that we just take it, and then you become like an accountability partner for them as well, as part of the journey. But so that's how I experimented, and my cousin, my business partner, knew right away, and I was like, "Good, I'm gonna train you on this." So when I told her, she's like, "Whoa!" I knew you went somewhere. I knew, because the day that I finished the training, I was like, "I want to tell somebody, but I don't want to tell, because if I start telling, they're gonna be like, oh, you trying to act like." Even my coworker and my team member, they were like, "You've changed, You're more quiet," and it just make you more wiser. I feel like, for us young folks, it just make you sound wiser. Like, okay, you're not jumping into the conversation everywhere, because there's this urge that we have, like, okay, I have like 55 things that I want to say and I want to bring them all out, and it just make you wiser in a meeting. Like when I go in meeting, I'm the most quiet person in the meeting, but every time I open my mouth, things that I say is probably the solution that we all need. And I usually speak last. One of the things that I learned also as a leader is leaders speak last. At least I choose to speak last in a meeting, because I want to give everybody a chance to express their opinion, because my leadership style is mostly democratic. I like to get opinion from everybody. So in a meeting setting, I don't say, this is what we're going to do. So what do you think, Andrea? No, I'm going to say, Andrea, this is the situation. What do you think? So allow me opportunity to also listen to everybody's point of view, and then collectively, so they also feel part of the solution as well.
Right. Well, and I think it's really important to point out that, I mean, everybody has a different leadership style, and in a team setting like that, it's going to be, there are different dynamics and there are things that work differently, but there is a difference between interrupting and being active, right? It's like the, okay, yeah. As podcasters, there's some people who just really are like, you need to, as a host, when they answer, you need to mute your microphone so that you're not making any noise. I'm like, I know, but they need to know I'm listening. Right?
I know. I saw
I'm the same
that
way. Yeah. But there's a difference between interrupting and being active. And some people are not vocally active, but some are. And there's a difference between organizing and interpreting and jumping to conclusions or hasty conclusions. And there's just a fine line to walk. So I think it was good that you pointed those things out as positives, and yet not to take them too far, right?
Yes.
So, would you be willing to download your presentation as a PDF and attach it?
I can send it. Yes.
Because there was a lot in there, and I would love personally to go through and pull it. So I think that would be great. And there were just a couple of comments over on the Facebook page, no questions at this moment. So what I'm going to do is I am going to let you take a rest, and I'm going to let you sign off today. But definitely, anybody with questions, go ahead. Even if you're listening to this a week later, drop a question in the comment, tag Lisette. She will comment. She's in the group and she's active. So thank you so much. This was really
for
really
having me. This was a treat. I really enjoyed. Yes. And sorry again for how I feel or look, but
no, you look gorgeous as always. I'm never worried about that. And really, really appreciate you coming in and taking the time, even when you feel so bad. So thank you so much. This has been really helpful.
That's what leaders do. We always show up.
I was thinking about it the other day. I was like, have I taken a sick day? I don't know that I have. Right. I mean, it's like, and that's just another aspect of leaders. We just do what we need to do. So I would expect nothing less.
I made it. So that's all that matters. Now I can go take a nap or something. Right.
Yes, ma'am. So
that was fun.
Thanks. Have a great one.
Yeah. Bye.